We begin today in South Africa. Johannesburg is days away from hosting the G20 Summit, the first ever leaders meeting on African soil. While the host nation is pitching this as a historic moment for the continent, the shadow of a US boycott hangs over the weekend gathering. Washington has announced that no US official will attend, with President Donald Trump accusing South Africa of human rights abuses and repeating discredited claims about white South Africans being targeted. The Trump administration has also rejected South Africa's summit priorities, which include promoting global solidarity, clean energy transitions, and a strong declaration on climate and debt relief for developing nations. In Johannesburg, last-minute preparations have been intense. Drone shots show the massive expo centre in Nasrec, the summit venue, and posters of world leaders lining the walls, but with one noticeable empty spot where the US president's image would have been. City crews have been fixing streetlights, repairing potholes and clearing waterlogged roads in low-income suburbs.
We are ready to receive our guests, heads of states, who will be descending to Johannesburg. We have made sure, as part of our work, that our infrastructure continue to be proper. Yes, there are challenges there and there. We have focused on them, especially for the visit. And there are also those issues that requires us that even beyond the G20, we continue with maintenance. We continue to ensure that street traffic lights are working, streets are proper, there are no potholes. So we'll continue to do that and maintain our infrastructure.
Security rehearsals are also underway, with Metro Police and traffic units running large-scale drills around the routes world leaders will take through the city. South Africa's Foreign Minister, Ronald Lamola, has downplayed the US absence, insisting this is not a snub.
We did our best to accommodate them, and they did come back into some of the meetings. At some point, it was indicated that they will be fully participants, and including at the Leaders Summit, that they will be represented at the Vice President level. But they have now decided out of their own volition and not being pushed out of the G20 by South Africa.
And as leaders prepare to arrive, the G20 Social Summit, the civil society wing of the G20, has already kicked off with striking visuals in Johannesburg. Traditional dance performances on stage and thousands of delegates packed into a colourful plenary hall. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's deputy opened the summit, emphasising its role in ensuring that grassroots voices reach G20 leaders.
Confident that the leaders of the G20 who will be participating this weekend will consider issues coming from the social summit very seriously, because these are not issues coming from one or two organizations. You can see we had more than 4,000 delegates here, people coming from not only South Africa, but also in the African continent, NGOs globally. So this is a very important voice that should not be ignored, and I'm sure the leaders will not ignore this.
The G20 Summit begins this weekend, with South Africa determined to deliver a meeting that reflects African priorities, even as the US boycott shifts the global balance in the room. And for more on this, we have with us Khanyi Magubane, a political analyst joining us live from the host city of this year's G20 Summit, Johannesburg. Thank you for joining us.
A very good afternoon to you and your viewers.
This is a hugely historic moment. An African nation is hosting the G20 Summit for the first time ever, but with the backdrop of this controversial US absence and claims of a white genocide. Can you tell us what the perspective is of the South African people?
Thank you very much. Well, given the recent US-South Africa relations, which have been quite tense since the beginning of the year, when the narrative about the genocide against Afrikaners, and they are the ones that have been engaging the White House and have been peddling this narrative of a genocide against Afrikaners, which of course has been discredited and has found to be untrue. However, the US government on the back of that has since decided not to attend the the G20 summit on the back of those genocide claims. Now, we know that initially the US government had said that Deputy President J.D. Vance would attend the G20 summit and that he would be accompanied by a high-level delegation. And it was just about 2 weeks ago when the President Trump almost on the spot decided that no official of the US administration would be attending the G20 summit. However, in subsequent days, it's becoming clear that the decision may not have been very well thought over, given the fact that the US is going to be hosting the summit next year, and there has to be a handover from one country to another. And in between that, at the end of the summit, there has to be a summit declaration, which is taken by all the leaders present. Now, the South African view has been that this has been a very, very, I would say, disappointing moment for us, because the US is undermining an African country that is hosting the G20 summit for the very first time. They are, of course, in my opinion, not so confident that they're going to come here and find a genocide. They know there's no genocide, and I think they're avoiding the embarrassment of coming to South Africa and actually seeing that there's no genocide. However, it's coming back to bite them, because now the U.S. government has been in touch with Pretoria, the South African embassy, in terms of threatening them that South Africa and the leaders attending should not even attempt to adopt a summit declaration without them. And my question is, if you want to be included in those talks that eventually lead to a summit declaration that, of course, is based on the summit discussion topics, why not be here? This is very similar to somebody refusing to come to a person's birthday party when they've been invited to, but threatens that you can't cut the cake without me. If you wanted to be there, that's where they should have been. The US should have been here.
Yes, and building on that, does the US boycott impact the significance of the summit? And how do you think the Ramaphosa government is aiming to counter the US absence?
Well, let's look at the big discussion topics that will be taking place in the summit this year. Climate change is definitely a big topic and of interest that's going to be taking place as the world takes resolutions toward meeting those climate change goals that we have. As the world, we have also issues of debt cancellation and debt issues. Africa owes institutions such as the World Bank and the IMF trillions of dollars, and this has kept Africa enslaved, to the West, and this is also going to be very high on the agenda. Issues of digital development and AI is also going to be quite high on the agenda, and I think that these are issues that the American government could have actually had a lot to contribute to, and that's why I'm saying that I think it's starting to bite America in the butt, that they may have been a bit too hasty and too impulsive in taking this decision not to attend the summit, or the president himself may have taken quite an impulsive decision, because ultimately it is clear that they were quite very I would say they were essential to be here, and without them, the summit will continue without the American voice. And it's quite sad, because next year they have to host themselves and there has to be continuity. But we're going to see a break in continuity. I think the South African government has made it very clear that they're not going to send the handover file to America. America has to come and fetch it. And if they don't, then they are going to have to host the G20 summit without a handover officially from South Africa.
Yes, and Kanye, of course, we've heard Trump talk about BRICS and the growing South, saying that policies are anti-American, imposing further tariffs as well. Could this be seen potentially as an opportunity for the growing South, because US representation won't be there?
Well, let's talk about the countries that are not coming. Russia, Mexico, Argentina are all sending delegations, even though they are not sending their heads of state. So they will have a presence. America is the only country that will have absolutely no officials from the Trump administration attending. The other countries who've actually indicated that their presidents are not coming will still be present. So issues of the BRICS summit and the economic bloc getting stronger will once again be strengthened, by the US's refusal to attend the G20 summit. Already we've heard from our Foreign Minister, Ronald Damula, who gave a breakdown of who will be attending, and we have 20 heads of states, we have 16 visiting guest countries, and we also have guests that have been invited from the Caribbean and from the other African countries. This is going to be one of the most inclusive G20 summits that has ever been held, which has been described by America as a G100, you know, taking a swipe at the inclusivity that the South African government has created around this. They've actually given an indication earlier today through some of their officials that next year they're going to be trimming down the G20 summit. It will only be the essential countries that are coming there. So we are most likely to see Africa being left out once again next year. We are most likely to see a lot of exclusion of third world countries, and we are most likely to see a reversal of some of the gains and declarations that will be taken this year, which will then mean that there really won't be any sustainable continuity from South Africa to the United States.
Kanye, thank you ever so much for your time. Of course, all eyes will be on this summit this weekend in Johannesburg. We look forward to seeing that, and thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.
I was a revolutionary. I became a ruler. I claimed to protect my people. I terrorized them instead. I built palaces. I started wars. I lost everything. Some called me a defender of Arab pride. History remembers me as a dictator.